Thank you for joining us here on New Mexico in Focus. Serge, the national eviction moratorium set to end the last day of 2020 was extended for 1 month.
Mhm.
Lawmakers struck the coronavirus aid deal on December 20th to extend the national eviction moratorium through the end of January and establish an assistance rental fund of $25 billion. How does that new deal translate for New Mexicans?
So the moratorium, the CDC imposed moratorium that's extended, is, you know, in New Mexico it may not have that much of an impact because we still have the stay that was issued by our state Supreme Court back in March that is still in place and is still keeping people from being evicted for non-payment of rent. We don't know how long that will last, and there are certainly things that could be done to make it a little bit more robust. But in terms of how that extension of the federal moratorium will affect folks, it's probably not going to make a huge difference in terms of how that affects individual renters who are facing eviction. The $25 billion, right? Our share of that in New Mexico looks to be about $200 million, and it's not clear yet exactly how that will be distributed, how much of that is purely for rent and how much might go to other things like utilities. But that's a big pot of money that will be coming, to New Mexico. So we can look to that as, I think, providing some relief to tenants and landlords who have really been struggling, in this pandemic. The rules around the allocation of that money leave gaps and folks who will be uncovered and doesn't address all of the folks who might be potentially in need of that. But it's a good start.
So, according to data from the Census Household Pulse Survey just over a month ago, 1 in 5 adult renters said they were behind on their rent. Do you find similar statistics here in New Mexico?
Yeah, I mean, no one knows exactly what the numbers are, right? But anecdotally, and certainly based on what I'm hearing from around the state and seeing what's going on, that sounds certainly not too low, or not too high, rather, right? It may be too low given the economic issues that we already have here in New Mexico and the housing instability that was already here before March when it was all exacerbated. But yeah, those numbers, I mean, whatever the actual numbers are, they are shockingly high.
It is very high. And evictions worsen the spread of COVID. There's just a big study on that. $25 billion only covers about a quarter of the back rent that's owed, even though it's a huge amount of money. New administration coming in, will we get better numbers? Is it too late to stem the spread of COVID from evictions?
I don't think it's too late. I think we're getting to a point, we've been talking for months about the tidal wave of evictions that's going to be coming. And there have been stopgap measures and ways that the can has been kicked down the road. We're getting to a point now where the amount of back rent that has been stayed or delayed is going to become unpayable. So even when folks get back to work or whatnot, they're not going to be in a position to be able to pay, as you said, these hundred billions of dollars of back rent. It would require a real commitment to facing this. But because of the half measures that have been in place have worked well enough, right? We don't see the huge mass dislocation that we've been worried. That day is coming. We just don't know exactly when that will be. But what is needed is immediate intensive intervention right now to stop that, because you're right. When people are dislocated, it's not just their belongings that move around with them, right? It's the coronavirus thrives in that environment.
Early in 2020, you and a couple of others formed a group called Amparo, which means Protection, Refuge, Shelter. And it was created to rapidly distribute rental assistance to families in Albuquerque who have kids. It's a pretty narrow focus, as you say, a new organization just starting out. And you created Amparo because you were coming across families facing eviction when resources were available, because getting those resources was often really cumbersome and slow moving. And in an email to our producers here at InFocus, you said, I'm going to quote you, "I have mixed feelings about Amparo. I absolutely think it fills a need, and I'm so pleased with all the love and support we've gotten from folks, but I'm angry that it exists at all, because that means the state is not treating housing as a priority, let alone a human right. So what must the state do to make housing a priority?"
Right. I mean, I think the first step is to recognize really how important housing is to all the things we want to accomplish as a state and housing stability. We've seen over the last 10 months what it means for public health, but we haven't really also understood what it means for, individual health, mental health, for community stability. But we treat it as this sort of, commodity and hope that the market will address it rather than something that is a right and a bedrock foundation. So, here in New Mexico, we don't even have anybody whose job it is at the state level to coordinate and discuss all of the housing issues that we have as a state. We have different folks who have different parts of the job, but, I've been for quite some time suggesting that advocating for us to have somebody whose job it is, a department or a person in a particular position whose job it is to understand and coordinate all of these little strands of housing to really understand the centrality of stable housing in everything we do in New Mexico, and to put the resources toward it, right? Rather than rely, as we're doing, right, on small nonprofits, on individual donations, on disjointed and dispersed sort of sources of assistance, rather than looking at treating it as a state, as a priority of our state, and create a sort of a single focus on it. And as I said, it's easy to talk about it, but it's important to put resources toward that.
Well, it reminds me of the early childhood issues, because those are sort of scattered across departments, and now we have a secretary focused on early childhood.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of
position,
Yeah, I think it's a good analogy, right? Because there are, there's folks who are trying to create affordable housing and develop more housing. There are folks who are worried about health, public health, folks who are worried about community and economic development. But there's no one single person whose job it is, or place whose job it is, to bring that all together and sort of, coordinate all the efforts and all the things that we're doing. But it's also symbolic, right? The lack of that shows what we do and don't care about in New Mexico in terms of what we think the role of our state is in helping the folks who live here.
What should we be doing at a national level to make housing a priority?
Well, first of all, recognizing that it is a real issue, and it's something that Congress has been doing. They've been, pushing and getting some money out the door and putting, measures in place. But I think all of the halting, the stays, and the moratoriums, they're a half measure. They're not addressing the full extent of the issue. They are saying, well, we can, let's just try to hold this back until something happens down the road, and missing the idea that we're going to need people. Tenants and landlords have been missing money, right? They've been going without. So I think it needs a real commitment in the moment to addressing that. Going forward, right, we no longer have a tradition of public housing in this country, and in fact have limited our ability to expand it in some ways. And what that again says is, this is something the market will take care of that. We're not going to worry about it, rather than this is a real issue that is central, not just to the state of New Mexico, to every person in the United States, and should be treated as a right that we have, and something that, because we can provide housing, we will, and we'll reap the benefits from that. But for so long, we've just sort of hoped that it would fix itself, and that working with the market, it would somehow magically work. That does not work. It has not worked. That was the problem before the pandemic. It's only been highlighted more so. When the vaccine has been given to every person in America, we will still have this issue. And the time to focus on it is now, rather than wait for another crisis or calamity down the road.
Yeah, we have Section 8, but the people I talk to anecdotally when I help them with rent that's a long waiting list. New Mexico also has a significant population of Native Americans, and many, though they have housing, they're living in substandard or overcrowded conditions often. Many others lack housing altogether on tribal lands. Many indigenous people are homeless in urban areas, and COVID has hit tribal areas and Native Americans particularly hard, with poor housing playing a big part. Many Native American elders don't believe the federal government cares enough to address the problem. Is there a community approach that's the answer?
Well, I think, we have seen as you're saying, like sort of the lack of attention to community economic development in tribal communities around the country. Here in New Mexico, in particular, and the Navajo Nation, which spans several states, seeing the lack of support, investment, concern about economic development in those communities, and really pushing for prosperity in tribal communities, is we see how that plays out, right? You have the housing conditions in parts of the tribal communities in New Mexico are just deplorable and below what most folks would think are acceptable in this time and in this place, and yet we let it go. So an understanding that we need to do more in that realm is super important. But I think investing in prosperity and pushing for prosperity in those communities is key and crucial.
We only have about a minute, Serge, but are you looking at any proposed bills in the upcoming legislative session that will address housing?
Yeah, there are a few things up there that I think will be interesting. There's an effort, and I will, in full disclosure, I've been part of, to change some of the timings in evictions, to give tenants more time, ideally to work things out with their landlord, to get the resources that they need, so it doesn't move quite so quickly, and to just create more incentive for folks to sit down and work it out rather than go straight to eviction. There are a couple other things up there. Andrea Romero and Angelica Rubio, representatives from Santa Fe and Las Cruces, have been putting forward a bill that has a few tweaks and important changes to landlord-tenant law and procedure.
Well, I appreciate you coming back and talking with us about this. Obviously, it's going to be an ongoing issue, so I'm sure we'll see you again in the future.
All right. Well, thanks so much.
Thank you.